A millionaire, deluded by his new wife, was on the verge of committing the unthinkable, abandoning his own daughter in a desert. But he didn't expect the Raven, a silent witness to all the cruelty, to steal the evidence that would unmask the villain. The Albuquerque mansion, a monument of stone and glass that once pulsed with the life of 3 generations, now resonated with a heavy, almost oppressive silence. Upstairs, in a room that had once been the heart of the house, Mr. Manuel, the family patriarch, lay in his bed, his eyes fixed on an invisible spot on the ceiling. The window, once always open to the garden, was now veiled by heavy curtains, and the door, locked from the outside, was an invisible yet impenetrable barrier. Sophia, the new lady of the house, glided into the room with a practiced smile. In her hands, a tray with thin soup and a glass of water. "Good morning, dear father-in-law," she sang, her voice sweet as honey, but with an underlying coldness that only the old man in his forced lucidity could discern. "I brought your breakfast. The doctor said rest is essential for your recovery." Mr. Manuel merely grunted, turning his face to the wall. He knew that rest was synonymous with isolation, and recovery meant staying out of the way. Ever since Sophia had entered his son Ricardo's life, everything had changed. His granddaughter, Helena, whom he loved more than anything, was now a stranger in her own home. "Don't be stubborn, Grandpa," Sophia insisted, the soup spoon hovering in the air. "Helena is busy with her own problems. It's better that you don't worry about her now. Your son Ricardo is doing what's best for all of us." Downstairs, Helena felt the suffocating atmosphere of the house. She tried to go up to see her grandfather, but one of the maids, with an apologetic look, blocked her way. Mrs. Sophia asked that no one disturb Mr. Manuel, miss. He needs absolute rest. Helena sighed, frustration burning in her chest. It was always like this. Ever since Sophia married her father, she had become a stranger in her own home. Her father, Ricardo, once her safe harbor, now viewed her with growing suspicion, fueled by Sophia's whispered insinuations. In the study, Ricardo was leafing through some documents, his brow furrowed. Sophia entered, a silk shawl draped over her shoulders, the image of a devoted wife. "Ricardo, my love, you seem worried." "It's Helena," he confessed, his voice heavy. "She's becoming more and more rebellious. She doesn't accept my decisions. She questions everything. And Grandpa, she disturbs him with her complaints." Sophia sat on the edge of the desk, her hand gently on his arm. "My dear, I understand your pain, but Helena needs boundaries. She's becoming a negative influence on the family, on our future. She doesn't understand the value of what we have, of what we've built together." Her eyes, once so angelic, hardened for an instant. Perhaps some time away, a new environment would make her reflect, a place where she can find her own path, without the distractions and temptations of this luxurious life she so undervalues. Ricardo pressed his lips together. The idea planted by Sophia weeks ago now seemed the only solution. A new environment, a place to reflect. Sophia had suggested a remote family property, almost forgotten, in the interior of the state. A desolate place, without cell signal, without neighbors, without anything. A desert of opportunities and affection. "You're right, Sophia," Ricardo said, his voice low but firm. "She needs to learn the value of things. She needs to understand that she can't keep acting like this. I'll arrange everything for her trip, tomorrow." Sophia smiled, a glint of triumph in her eyes that Ricardo, blind with love, failed to notice. "It's for her own good, my love, for the good of all of us." Meanwhile, outside, perched on the highest branch of an ancient oak, the Raven observed the scene through the half-open study window. Its black, astute eyes missed not a single movement, not a single gesture. It had seen old Manuel's misery, Helena's sadness, and the web of lies Sophia was weaving, and it knew time was running out. The evidence, The document that would seal Helena's fate was hidden somewhere in that house, and the Raven, a silent witness to the tyranny, was ready to act. The morning sun barely crept through the heavy curtains of Helena's room, but she already felt the weight of that new day. A dark premonition hung over the mansion, denser than the morning mist covering the gardens. She rose, donning a silk robe, and went downstairs, hoping to find an opening to speak with her grandfather. But Mr. Manuel's bedroom door remained closed, and the maid, with a look of pity, merely shook her head. "Mrs. Sophia is with him, miss. She said he needs complete tranquility." Upstairs, Sophia, with a victorious smile, adjusted the final details. In her hands, a heavy envelope bearing the family law firm's letterhead. It wasn't a common eviction letter, but an addendum to Ricardo's will, carefully altered to disinherit Helena and transfer her share of the fortune to a trust fund under Sophia's exclusive control, with the justification of ensuring Helena's future in a more suitable and independent environment. It was the final blow, the guarantee that once far away, Helena would have no way to return or reclaim her place. She slid the document back into the secret drawer of her desk, a hidden compartment only she knew about. Meanwhile, in Mr. Manuel's room, the atmosphere was suffocating. The old patriarch, paler than ever, refused to eat the soup Sophia offered him. "Where is Helena?" he murmured, his voice weak. "Why don't I see her?" Sophia sighed, a gesture of false patience. "Grandpa, we've talked about this. Helena is going through a difficult period. Her father is taking the necessary steps for her to find her way. It's for her own good, and for yours too. You need to focus on your recovery, not on unnecessary worries." She adjusted the blankets, a forced smile on her lips. "Now, rest. I need to sort out some important things for Ricardo." Downstairs, Helena was called to her father's study. Ricardo sat at his desk, his face drawn, but with a cold determination. Sophia was by his side, her hand resting gently on his shoulder, a look of support and understanding on her angelic face. "Helena," Ricardo began, his voice devoid of its former tenderness, "your stepmother and I have talked at length. We've come to a decision we believe is best for you." Helena felt a shiver down her spine. "Decision? About what, father?" "About your future," Sophia interjected, her voice soft. "You've shown a certain dissatisfaction with the house rules, with the life we lead. Ricardo and I thought that sometime in a different, simpler environment would help you find your purpose." Ricardo cleared his throat. "We've prepared everything for your trip, Helena. You'll leave tomorrow for the property inland. It's a quiet, isolated place. There you'll have time to reflect, to reconnect with yourself, away from distractions." Helena felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. "What? Inland? Father? What are you talking about? I don't want to go anywhere. This is my home. And Grandpa? He needs me." "Don't raise your voice, Helena," Ricardo warned, his patience wearing thin. "Your attitude is exactly what led us to this decision. Don't you understand we're doing this for your own good? Grandpa is being well cared for. You don't need to worry about him." "It's not for my good, Father. It's for hers." Helena pointed at Sophia, tears welling in her eyes. "She's manipulating you. She wants to get rid of me." Sophia let out a wounded sigh, squeezing Ricardo's arm. "My love, see how ungrateful she is. She tries to turn us against each other. That's exactly why she needs this time to herself." Ricardo stood up, anger in his eyes. "Enough, Helena. The decision is made. You will leave tomorrow. There's no more discussion. Pack your things." Helena, feeling completely betrayed and powerless, ran out of the study, tears streaming down her face. The door closed behind her with a dry thud, sealing her fate. Sophia smiled at Ricardo, a triumphant smile that he, in his blindness, interpreted as relief. "It's for the best, my love. For all of us." She leaned in and kissed him softly. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I just need to check one last document to ensure everything is in order for her departure." She walked to the desk, opened the secret drawer, and took out the heavy envelope. Her eyes scanned the lines of the document, a glint of satisfaction in them. "Perfect," she murmured. No loopholes. Indeed, while Sophia was absorbed in her victory, the raven, which had been observing everything from the half-open window, saw its chance. With a swift and silent flight, it entered the study, its black eyes fixed on the envelope in Sophia's hands. In a flash, before she could react, the raven swooped down, its sharp talons gripped the corner of the document, and with a defiant caw, it took flight again. Exiting through the window as quickly as it had entered, Sophia let out a cry of surprise and rage, extending her empty hand into the air. "My document! The raven! It stole it!" Ricardo, stunned, looked at the window. Outside, the raven flew in circles, the white envelope dangling precariously in its talons, a speck of light against the grey sky. It seemed to be heading towards the downstairs veranda, where Ricardo usually read his morning papers. Ricardo's heart began to pound with unusual force, hammering in his temples. The apprehension, once a seed, now sprouted in his chest. The white envelope, a stark contrast to the bird's dark feathers, dangled precariously in its talons. "Ricardo, my love, don't worry about it. It's just a silly bird. It must have picked up any old piece of paper." Sophia tried to downplay, her voice a tone higher than usual, a nervousness Ricardo noticed for the first time. She ran to the window, her eyes fixed on the raven, a contained fury on her angelic face that he had never seen before. "It'll drop it somewhere. It's nothing important." But Ricardo was already in motion. That raven, that scene, Sophia's reaction. Something was terribly wrong. He rushed downstairs, ignoring Sophia's anxious calls. When he reached the veranda, the raven had already disappeared, but there on the cushion of his favorite armchair was the envelope, white, heavy, with the family law firm's letterhead. Sophia caught up with him, breathless, her eyes wide. "Ricardo, don't touch that. It might be dirty, it's just trash the bird picked up." She reached for the envelope, but Ricardo was faster. He picked it up, the familiar texture of the paper beneath his fingers. The weight of the envelope was significant. It wasn't trash. His eyes scanned the letterhead and then the sender's name, Dr. Almeida, his trusted lawyer. A wave of cold ran down his spine. "What is this, Sophia?" he asked, his voice low, almost a whisper, but with an intensity that made her recoil. Sophia attempted a forced smile. "It must be some old correspondence, my love. Dr. Almeida always sends us so many papers. It's nothing you need to worry about now." Ricardo ignored her. His fingers trembled slightly as he opened the envelope. Inside, there was a single document. He unfolded it, and his eyes, once blind, began to read the lines. Addendum to the will of Ricardo Albuquerque. The first line hit him like a punch to the gut. He continued reading, each word a sharp knife piercing his soul. "Considering the inappropriate conduct and notorious dissatisfaction of my daughter, Helena Albuquerque, with family rules and values, I designate that her share of the inheritance be transferred to a trust fund under the exclusive administration of my wife, Sophia Albuquerque, to ensure her future in a more suitable and independent environment." The words danced before his eyes, but the meaning was crystal clear. Brutal, disinherit Helena, hand control to Sophia. More suitable and independent environment. He heard the echo of his own words, the words Sophia had planted in his mind. The desert where he was about to send his daughter. A roar of disbelief and fury escaped his throat. He lifted his eyes to Sophia, who was now pale, her forced smile gone, terror plastered across her face. "What is this, Sophia?" he bellowed. the crumpled document in his hand. "What the hell is this?" Sophia staggered backward, her hands raised in a pleading gesture. "Ricardo, my love, I can explain. It's just a draft, an idea we had for Helena's good, to protect her from herself, from her own wrong choices." "A draft?" Ricardo threw the document to the floor, his eyes blazing. "This is a legal addendum with Dr. Almeida's signature. You made me sign this? You manipulated me into disinheriting my own daughter, to hand her over to you so you could control her completely?" The image of the angelic Sophia shattered before his eyes, revealing the cold, calculating creature behind the mask, the web of lies, the insinuations about Helena, the isolation of his father. Everything clicked into place, forming a macabre puzzle. He remembered his father, Mr. Manuel's words, which he had ignored so many times. "She's not who she seems, my son. She's blinding you." And Helena, his sweet Helena, whom he was about to abandon in a desert of opportunities and affection. Guilt hit him with the force of a tsunami, crushing him. He had been a fool, blind, a negligent father. You're a monster," Ricardo whispered, his voice choked with rage and pain. "You used me! You used my daughter! You used my father!" Sophia tried to approach, false tears already welling in her eyes. "My love, please don't say that. I did everything for us, for our family. Helena is rebellious. She needs discipline. I just wanted the best for her so she wouldn't squander everything." "Don't you dare!" Ricardo recoiled, his hand raised. "Don't you dare speak my daughter's name with that lying mouth. You wanted everything, my fortune, my house, my family, and you were willing to destroy Helena to get it." His eyes fixed on the document on the floor, then on Sophia, and finally on the window, where the raven, the messenger of truth, was no longer. That bird had been the only one to see through the facade, the only one to act, and now the truth, naked and cruel, lay there, between him and the woman he had loved blindly. The morning sun, which had once seemed to promise a new day, now illuminated the scene with a merciless light, revealing every shadow, every lie. Ricardo felt a knot in his throat, a mix of fury and searing pain. He had to fix this. He had to save Helena, and he had to confront the woman who had almost destroyed everything. His eyes, once blind with passion and trust, now saw Sophia in a cold, unforgiving light. The mask of sweetness and concern had completely fallen, revealing the calculating and cruel face that Helena and his father had tried in vain to warn him about. The image of Sophia, which he had idealized for so long, disintegrated into 1,000 pieces before his eyes. You're a monster," Ricardo whispered again, his voice choked with rage and pain, but now with a cutting clarity. "You used me. You used my daughter. You used my father." Sophia, realizing the situation had completely slipped from her control, played her last card. Her tears, once false, now seemed to well from genuine despair, though not remorse. "I just wanted the best for her, so she wouldn't squander everything." She took a step forward, reaching out to touch him, but Ricardo recoiled as if she were poison. "Don't you dare!" he bellowed, his hand raised in a gesture of repulsion. "You wanted everything, and you were willing to destroy Helena to get it." Rage consumed him, but guilt was an even heavier burden. His father, Mr. Manuel's words echoed in his mind. "She's not who she seems, my son. She's blinding you." And Helena's tears, the pleas he had ignored, the accusations he had attributed to her rebelliousness. He had been Sophia's perfect accomplice, a puppet in her hands. "I can't believe I was so foolish," he murmured, more to himself than to her, his voice laden with self-loathing. "I allowed you to isolate my father, to make him suffer in silence. I believed every lie about Helena, every insinuation about her ingratitude. I was about to send her to a desolate place, a desert, as you called it, while you reveled in the idea of controlling her life and her inheritance. Sophia, seeing that her excuses had no effect, dropped the facade of a victim. Her eyes hardened, and a glint of defiance mixed with panic appeared in them. "And what are you going to do now, Ricardo? Do you think anyone will believe you? In a raven that stole a document? I'll say you're disoriented, that you're under stress. No one will believe that I, your loving wife, would do something like that." Ricardo let out a bitter, humorless laugh. "You underestimate the truth, Sophia, and you underestimate people's intelligence. Dr. Almeida is a man of integrity. He will confirm the authenticity of this addendum, and I, myself, in my blindness, signed it. But now, my eyes are open." He picked up the crumpled document from the floor, holding it as irrefutable proof. "This draft, as you called it, is your undoing." He turned, ignoring her completely, and picked up the landline phone from the veranda. His fingers trembled, but his voice was firm as he dialed the driver's number. "Carlos, prepare the car immediately." "No, wait. Where is Helena? Is she ready for the trip?" Sophia, in total panic, lunged at him. "No, Ricardo, don't do this. Think of the consequences. Think of our reputation." Ricardo spoke softly but firmly. "Our reputation. You destroyed our reputation with your lies and your ambition. The only thing that matters to me now is to fix the harm you caused my daughter and my father." He heard Carlos's voice on the other end of the line. "Carlos, don't let Helena leave the house. I repeat, don't let her. She's not going anywhere. And please call Dr. Almeida. Tell him I need to see him urgently. And then I want a room prepared for my father downstairs, with all the comforts. He will no longer be isolated." He hung up the phone, turned to Sophia, who was pale and trembling, and his eyes conveyed a coldness she had never seen. "This is the end, Sophia, the end of your charade, and the beginning of your downfall." He walked past her, determined. The raven had played its part. Now it was his turn. He had to find Helena. And then his father. The truth had been revealed, and the consequences would be devastating. Ricardo ignored Sophia's murmuring, which now sounded like an empty plea, and ran through the mansion's corridors. Each step echoed his guilt. Each breath was a reminder of the time he had lost, of the lies he had swallowed. "Helena!" he bellowed, his voice hoarse as he climbed the stairs 2 steps at a time. "Helena, where are you?" He found her in her room, sitting on the edge of the bed, a small backpack at her feet. Her eyes, once full of youthful sparkle, were dull, swollen from crying. She looked out the window at the world outside that seemed to be moving away from her. Seeing him, she startled. She shrugged, expecting the final scolding, the order to leave. "Father," she whispered, her voice almost inaudible, without any expectation of affection. Ricardo stopped at the door, his heart aching. Her image, so fragile, so desolate, pierced his soul. He felt like the worst of men. "Helena, my daughter," he began. His voice choked and took a hesitant step into the room. Helena recoiled slightly. "I'm ready, Father. Carlos said the car is almost ready. Don't worry, I won't cause any more trouble." The resignation in her voice was a harder blow than any accusation. "No!" Ricardo exclaimed, stepping forward and kneeling before her, holding her cold hands. "No, Helena, you're not going anywhere. Not like this. I made a terrible mistake. An unforgivable mistake." His eyes, tear-filled, sought hers, pleading for understanding. "I was blind, my daughter. Blind with love, blind with pride. I didn't want to see the truth." Helena looked at him with suspicion, a mix of pain and confusion. "What are you talking about, Father? You always said I was a problem, that I needed to learn to live on my own." "I know. And I hate myself for it." Ricardo squeezed her hands. "Sophia, she manipulated me. She planted these ideas in my head. She made me believe you were ungrateful, rebellious, that you wanted to disrespect me. She made me sign a document, an addendum to my will, to to disinherit you, Helena, to push you away from me so she could control everything. He released her hands and took the crumpled document from his pocket, extending it. Look, this is the draft she wanted to hide. The Raven. The Raven brought this to me. It opened my eyes. Helena took the paper, her eyes wide as she read the lines that would seal her fate. With each word, disbelief turned into profound shock, then anger, and finally, searing pain. She did this. She whispered, tears welling again, but this time not from sadness, but from righteous fury. She wanted to take everything from me, and you believed her. I was a fool, Helena, a complete and utter fool, Ricardo confessed, his voice choked with shame. I ignored your warnings, your grandfather's warnings. I was so entangled in her web of lies that I didn't see the monster she was. I was about to send you to a desolate place, a desert, as she called it, while she planned to destroy our family and take everything for herself. He stood up, pulling her into a tight embrace. Helena, initially rigid, collapsed into his arms, her tears wetting his shoulder. It was an embrace of apology, of forgiveness, of a father who had reconnected with his daughter. I'm so sorry, my daughter. I'm sorry for every word, for every moment of neglect, for every tear you shed because of me, he whispered, stroking her hair. But it's over. Her charade is over. You're not going anywhere. You're safe, and I'm going to fix everything. Everything. Helena pulled back slightly, her eyes red, but with a glimmer of hope Ricardo hadn't seen in a long time. But what about Sophia and Grandpa? Sophia will pay for everything she's done, Ricardo promised, his voice hardening with new determination. And your grandfather. I've already called Carlos. He's going to prepare a room for him downstairs with all the comforts. He will no longer be isolated. I'll apologize to him too. I'll take care of him, as I should have from the start. He held Helena's face in his hands. We're going to fix this together. I'm going to fight for you, for us. I'll never abandon you again, Helena, never again. Helena nodded, a lump in her throat. The pain was still there, but hope, faith in her father, began to blossom again. The desert had been avoided. Ricardo felt a renewed strength. Guilt still gnawed at him, but the determination to protect his daughter and his father, to atone for his mistakes, was even greater. He had to act. He had to confront Sophia, undo the will, and bring his father back into the family fold. The battle was just beginning, but now he was no longer blind. He was ready. I believe you, Father, she whispered, her voice choked. But what are we going to do now? Ricardo stood up, gently pulling her to her feet as well. First, we're going to undo this monstrosity. He gestured to the crumpled document still in Helena's hands. Dr. Almeida is coming. He will witness what Sophia did and help me annul this. Then, we're bringing your grandfather here. And then, Sophia will have to face the consequences. Helena felt a shiver. The idea of Sophia, once a figure of authority and false sweetness, now revealed as a cruel villain, was difficult to process. She's leaving? She no longer has a place in this house, Helena, nor in our lives, Ricardo stated, his voice cold as ice. But first, she will hear the truth. All of it. He picked up the phone and dialed Carlos's number again. Carlos, is Dr. Almeida on his way? Great. As soon as he arrives, ask him to wait in the living room, and please go to my father's room. Help him come downstairs. Tell him I'm waiting. Carefully, please. Hanging up, Ricardo looked at Helena. Come with me. You need to be there. You need to see that the truth prevails. They went downstairs together, Helena still a little hesitant, but her hand firmly held by her father's. When they reached the ground floor, they found Sophia in the living room, sitting in an armchair, pale and with swollen eyes. Her posture, once haughty, was now that of a cornered woman. She lifted her head at the sight of them, and a glint of hatred passed through her eyes as she saw Ricardo's hand holding Helena's. So the great hero finally decided to join his ungrateful daughter, Sophia sneered, her voice hoarse, trying to regain some of her old arrogance, but failing miserably. Ricardo stopped in the middle of the room, releasing Helena's hand to turn fully towards Sophia. His eyes were steel. "Don't you dare speak of Helena like that. She is my daughter, and you. You are an impostor, a cruel manipulator who almost destroyed my family out of greed." Sophia stood up, her fists clenched. "Greed. I did this for us. For you. This girl was always a problem. She just wanted to drive a wedge between us." "Lie!" Ricardo bellowed, his voice echoing through the room. "You wanted to alienate me from everyone, from my father, from my daughter. You wanted everything for yourself, but it's over, Sophia. Your game is over." At that moment, Carlos appeared at the living room door, accompanied by Mr. Manuel. The old patriarch, though frail, walked with surprising dignity, leaning on the driver's arm. His eyes, once veiled by sadness and loneliness, now carried a spark of curiosity and hope. Sophia paled even further at the sight of Mr. Manuel. Her eyes widened in panic. The old man's presence, whom she had kept isolated and silenced, was living proof of her cruelty. Ricardo turned to his father, the anger on his face softening into deep sadness and remorse. "Father," he began, his voice choked. He took a few steps towards Mr. Manuel, kneeling before him. "Father, forgive me. Forgive me for being so blind, for allowing her to treat you like this, for ignoring your warnings." Mr. Manuel placed a trembling hand on Ricardo's head, his eyes tear-filled. "My son, I knew you would see the truth. I knew." He looked at Sophia, who was now motionless, her face contorted in a mix of fury and despair. "The truth always finds its way, Sophia." Helena approached, hugging her grandfather. "Grandpa, it's good you're here." The family was reuniting, wounds beginning to heal. Sophia, on the other hand, was isolated, her charade unmasked. The front door opened, and Dr. Almeida entered, his expression serious. The time for the final truth had arrived. His eyes swept the room, taking in the scene. Sophia, pale and cornered, Ricardo, kneeling before his father with Helena beside him, a picture of reconciliation and pain. The lawyer, a middle-aged man with thin-rimmed glasses, nodded in general acknowledgement, but his gaze settled on Ricardo with grave expectation. Ricardo stood up, dignity restored in his posture, but his voice still laden with emotion. "Dr. Almeida, thank you for coming so quickly." He gestured towards Sophia. "We have a lot to resolve." Sophia, who until then seemed petrified, found a remnant of her old ferocity. "Resolve what, Ricardo? You're being ridiculous. This is my house. I am your wife." "You were my wife, Sophia," Ricardo corrected, his voice cold, "and this was never your home, just a stage for your charade. Dr. Almeida, this woman manipulated me, planted lies about my daughter and my father, and made me sign an addendum to my will to disinherit Helena." He took the crumpled document from Helena's hands and extended it to the lawyer. "This is the draft she wanted to hide. The Raven brought me the truth." Dr. Almeida took the paper carefully, his eyes scanning the lines with professional swiftness. With each paragraph, his expression grew darker. "This is an attempt to disinherit Miss Helena and transfer a large part of her assets to Mrs. Sophia under the premise of ingratitude and rebelliousness. It is signed but not properly witnessed, and appears to have been obtained under emotional duress at the very least." He looked at Sophia with disapproval. "This is fraud, madam." Sophia scoffed, trying to compose herself. "Fraud? I was protecting Ricardo. That girl is a problem, and the old man, he just gets in the way." Mr. Manuel, who was being supported by Carlos, stepped forward, his voice, though weak, laden with authority. You kept me isolated, Sophia. You deprived me of contact with my son and my granddaughter. You made me feel like a burden. You are the fraud here. Helena squeezed her grandfather's hand, her eyes fixed on Sophia. You have no idea what you've done. You almost destroyed our family. Ricardo turned to Sophia, his eyes burning with controlled fury. Your reign of terror is over. Dr. Almeida, I want you to immediately initiate the process of annulling this document and divorce, and I want her removed from this house today. Sophia staggered backward, her face contorted. Divorce? You can't do that. I have rights. I know things. I can destroy you. You already tried, Sophia, and failed miserably, Ricardo retorted, without a hint of hesitation. Your secrets are just more lies. Dr. Almeida, please arrange a restraining order. I don't want her to approach me, Helena, or my father. The lawyer nodded, already taking out his cell phone to make the first calls. Understood, Mr. Ricardo. I will initiate the procedures immediately. Sophia looked at each of them, hatred and despair mixing in her gaze. Her eyes stopped on Helena, then on Mr. Manuel, and finally on Ricardo, who now stared at her with a coldness she never imagined seeing in him. The mask of sweetness and fragility had completely fallen, revealing the villain behind it. You'll regret this, Ricardo. All of you will regret this, she screamed, her voice hoarse, before turning and running for the door, disappearing from sight. A heavy silence hung in the room. The tension, which had been almost palpable, began to dissipate, leaving behind a trail of exhaustion and relief. Ricardo approached his father and Helena, hugging them again. It's over, he whispered, his voice choked. It's truly over. Mr. Manuel, with tears in his eyes, patted his son's back. Yes, my son. The truth always finds its way. Helena, with tear-filled eyes, looked at the two men she loved. I always knew the truth would win. A heavy silence hung in the room, denser than before, now filled not with tension, but with an abrupt emptiness. The echo of Sophia's threats still seemed to vibrate in the air, but her oppressive presence had finally dissipated. Ricardo, Helena, and Mr. Manuel remained embraced for a long moment. The warmth of their bodies, a tangible reminder that despite everything, they still had each other. Dr. Almeida, with the discretion of a professional who had witnessed countless family dramas, cleared his throat softly, breaking the spell. Mr. Ricardo, with your permission, I will begin making the necessary calls. The restraining order can be issued quickly, and the divorce and will annulment procedures will take some time, but there are no significant legal impediments given the fraudulent nature of the document. Ricardo separated from the embrace, but kept a protective arm around Helena and a hand on his father's shoulder. Please, Dr. Almeida, do whatever is necessary. I want everything resolved as quickly and discreetly as possible. The lawyer nodded, already with the phone to his ear, moving to a corner of the room for his calls. Carlos, who had remained silent and discreet, approached the family. Mr. Ricardo, Mr. Manuel, Miss Helena, can I help with anything? Ricardo looked at his father, whose face, though still marked by exhaustion, showed a glimmer of peace not seen in years. Carlos, please help my father settle into the guest room downstairs. Make sure he has everything he needs. And then call the cook. I want a light dinner for the three of us, together. Mr. Manuel smiled weakly at his son. Thank you, my son. A room downstairs. And a family dinner. It's all I've ever wanted. Helena squeezed her grandfather's hand. I'll help you, Grandpa. And then we'll talk a lot. As Carlos gently led Mr. Manuel to the guest room, Ricardo turned to Helena, holding her face in his hands again. His eyes, once full of fury, were now tear-filled with regret and deep love. Helena, I I have no words to express how sorry I am. I was a fool, blind. I let her manipulate me, push me away from you, from my father. I almost threw you into an abyss because of a lie." He swallowed hard, his voice choked. "I promise you, my daughter, this will never happen again. I will win back your trust every day. I will be the father you deserve." Helena, despite the pain she still felt, saw the sincerity in her father's eyes. This was not the distant, manipulated man she had known in recent months. This was her father, back. "I know, Father," she whispered, tears streaming. "I know you regret it, and I want to believe you. I want us to be a family again." Ricardo pulled her into a tight embrace, the tightest they had ever shared. "We will be. We already are. And we're going to start healing these wounds together." He pulled back slightly, a small smile appearing on his lips. "And to think it all started with a raven that brought me the truth." Helena chuckled softly, a laugh that seemed like a miracle after everything. "The raven. It really saved us, didn't it?" "It saved us from a desert, my daughter," Ricardo confirmed, looking out the window where the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The house, once a stage for intrigue and lies, now seemed to breathe lighter air. Dr. Almeida approached, ending his calls. "Mr. Ricardo, the restraining order will be issued tomorrow morning, and the legal procedures are underway. I suggest that for now, Mrs. Sophia not have access to any joint assets or accounts. I will arrange that as well." "Perfect, Dr. Almeida. Thank you for everything." Ricardo extended his hand to the lawyer. "Please come back tomorrow to discuss the next steps." With the lawyer's departure, Ricardo and Helena went to Mr. Manuel's room. The old patriarch was sitting on the bed, a cup of tea in his hands, a soft blanket over his legs. Carlos was adjusting the curtains. "Grandpa, how are you?" Helena asked, sitting beside him. Mr. Manuel smiled, a genuine and warm smile. "I am at peace, my dear, finally at peace, and with you two here, I need nothing more." Ricardo knelt again beside his father's bed. "Father, I know the road to recovery will be long, but I am here, for you, for Helena. We will rebuild everything, and you will no longer be alone, never again." Mr. Manuel placed his hand on Ricardo's head, as he had done before. "I know, my son. I know. The truth, however painful, always sets us free." The family gathered for dinner, a simple meal, but laden with meaning. The conversations were light, but the glances exchanged were deep, full of silent promises of a different future. The wounds were still open, but the journey of healing had begun. Ricardo knew that trust was a broken vessel that needed to be mended with patience and love, but now he had the tools, and more importantly, the will. The desert had been avoided, and the family, though scarred, was finally on the way back home. The next morning dawned with a different quietness in the mansion. It was not the oppressive, tense silence of recent months, but a still fragile peace, like the calm after a storm. The sunbeams, filtered through the dining room curtains, seemed brighter, less somber. Ricardo was the first to come downstairs, feeling the weight of a night's sleep interrupted by nightmares and the clarity of a mind finally free from the fog of manipulation. He saw the table set for 3, a simple gesture from Carlos that already meant the world. Helena came down shortly after, her eyes a little swollen, but with a lightness in her step that Ricardo hadn't seen in a long time. She smiled at him, a small but genuine smile. "Good morning, Father." "Good morning, my daughter," Ricardo replied, feeling a warmth in his chest. "Did you sleep well?" "Better than in recent weeks," she admitted, sitting down. "And Grandpa?" At that moment, Carlos appeared, guiding Mr. Manuel, who walked with more firmness than the day before, though still with the butler's support. The old patriarch had a serene countenance, and his eyes, once clouded with sadness, now shone with renewed hope. "Good morning, my loves," Mr. Manuel said, his voice weak but laden with affection. "It's good to see you both here." Breakfast was a silent meal, but not uncomfortable. Each sip of coffee, each piece of bread was savored with silent gratitude. Words were not necessary. Each other's presence was enough. Ricardo watched Helena and his father, feeling a pang of pain for the lost time, but also an iron determination to make up for every second. Shortly before 9, Dr. Almeida arrived, punctual and with his briefcase full of documents. He was received in the living room, where Ricardo, Helena, and Mr. Manuel were already waiting for him. "Good morning, Mr. Ricardo, Miss Helena, Mr. Manuel," the lawyer greeted, his formality softened by a touch of empathy. "I've already made the first calls. The provisional restraining order against Mrs. Sophia was issued and delivered to her this morning. She is prohibited from approaching the property and any of you." Ricardo nodded, feeling immediate relief. "Excellent. And what about the rest?" "The divorce proceedings will be initiated today. Given the fraudulent nature of the will and the evidence of manipulation, the annulment of the document will be relatively simple. I have also requested the blocking of all joint accounts and the freezing of any assets she may have attempted to transfer." Dr. Almeida opened his briefcase, showing some papers. "We have irrefutable proof of the falsification of Mr. Manuel's signature and the threats she made to Helena. This greatly strengthens our position." Helena listened attentively, cold anger replacing the pain. "She will be held accountable for everything, won't she?" "Absolutely, Miss Helena," the lawyer confirmed. "In addition to the divorce and the annulment of the will, we can proceed with charges of fraud and, depending on what we discover about Mr. Manuel's treatment, even neglect and elder abuse." Ricardo squeezed his father's hand, who was pale but firm. "I want her to pay for every tear she caused, for every lie. I don't want her to have access to a single cent of my family's fortune." "Understood, Mr. Ricardo. My team and I will work tirelessly to ensure that. It will take time, but justice will be done." Mr. Manuel, who until then had only observed, spoke with a surprisingly clear voice. "My son, don't forget my original will. The one I made years ago, before all this." Ricardo looked at his father, surprised. "Father, I didn't know there was an earlier will." "Yes, my son. It's kept in the safe in my study. It ensures that Helena and you are the sole heirs, as has always been my wish." Dr. Almeida diligently took notes. "That is crucial, Mr. Manuel. We will retrieve it and use it as the basis for the distribution of assets." The meeting extended for over an hour, detailing strategies and next steps. When the lawyer finally said goodbye, Ricardo felt a weight lifted from his shoulders. The legal battle would be long and exhausting, but he was not alone. He had Helena, his father, and the truth. As the sun rose in the sky, illuminating every corner of the house, Ricardo looked out the window. Outside, perched on an oak branch, the raven observed the mansion, its intelligent gaze fixed on the scene. Ricardo smiled, a smile of gratitude and silent acknowledgement. The desert had been avoided, not only for Helena, but for the entire family. And now, they were ready to rebuild, brick by brick, the trust and love that had been stolen. The afternoon dragged on with an unusual lightness. Ricardo spent part of the time in the study not to work, but to organize old papers, seeking a way to reconnect with the life he had before Sophia. Helena, in turn, helped Carlos prepare tea for her grandfather, talking with the butler about Mr. Manuel's little quirks, something she hadn't done in years. The house, once a stage for tense silences, now echoed with the whisper of voices and the gentle clinking of dishes. When the sun began to dip to the west, Ricardo went to his father's room. He found Mr. Manuel reading a book, a dusty volume of poetry he remembered seeing in his childhood. Helena was sitting in the armchair next to him, drawing in a notebook. The scene was so peaceful that Ricardo hesitated to enter, fearing to break the spell. "May I join you?" he asked, his voice soft. Mr. Manuel looked up, a tired but genuine smile lighting his face. "Of course, my son. Always." Ricardo sat on the edge of the bed, observing his father and daughter. "Father, I've been thinking about everything and about the will you mentioned." Mr. Manuel closed the book, placing it carefully on the bedside table. "Yes, it's in the safe in my old study upstairs, the one Sophia forbade me to use." There was a hint of bitterness in his voice, but also relief. "I made it shortly after your mother passed away, Ricardo. I wanted to ensure that you and Helena would be protected, no matter what happened. I never imagined it would be necessary to protect you from someone so close." Helena looked up, her eyes fixed on her father. "So, her will. It's worthless?" "No, my daughter," Ricardo replied, taking her hand. "It's not. Dr. Almeida will ensure that, and your grandfather's will be the basis for everything. You and I are the heirs, as it should have always been." A silence filled the room, not a heavy silence, but one of reflection. Ricardo felt the need to go beyond words, to act. "Father, Helena, I know your trust in me was broken in many ways. I want to rebuild that. I want you to know that I am willing to do whatever it takes." Mr. Manuel nodded slowly. "I know, my son. I see it in your eyes, and that is enough for me for now." Helena squeezed Ricardo's hand. "I see it too, Father, but it still hurts. It hurts to think about how she separated us, how you believed her. I know you were manipulated, but it's hard to forget." "And you don't have to forget, my daughter," Ricardo said, his voice choked. "You need to give me a chance to show that I've learned, that I've changed, that I will fight for you, for our family, with the same intensity with which she fought to destroy us." He looked at his father. "Father, I want you to have your life back, your study, your books, your friends, everything." Mr. Manuel smiled, a glint in his eyes. "That would be a dream, my son, a dream I thought I would never live again." The next morning, Dr. Almeida returned, bringing more news. "Mr. Ricardo, Mrs. Sophia tried to contact the property several times during the night. She is furious about the restraining order and the blocking of accounts. Her lawyers have already contacted us, claiming that the actions are unfounded." Ricardo felt a wave of nausea, but anger propelled him. "Unfounded. She forged a will, manipulated my father, tried to disinherit my daughter, and turned her against me. She will have to prove she's innocent, not the other way around." "Exactly, Mr. Ricardo. We have a very strong case. The forensic team is already analyzing the forged will and the evidence of neglect against Mr. Manuel. I believe we will have a full report in a few days." Dr. Almeida opened his briefcase. "And regarding Mr. Manuel's original will, I have already arranged for the safe to be opened. A court officer will accompany you to ensure the legality of the process." Ricardo turned to his father. "Father, are you ready to go to your study, to retrieve the will?" Mr. Manuel took a deep breath, a mixture of apprehension and determination on his face. "I am ready, my son. It's time to set things right." As Mr. Manuel, Ricardo, and Dr. Almeida prepared to go upstairs, Helena watched from the window. Outside, perched on the same oak branch, the raven observed the mansion like a silent guardian. She felt a shiver, not of fear, but of a strange gratitude. The truth, however painful, was finally unraveling the webs of lies. The journey would be long, but the family was united, and that was what mattered. The desert had been avoided, and now they were ready to face the approaching storm together. Mr. Manuel's study upstairs was a relic of memories. Dusty books filled mahogany shelves, an antique globe rested in a corner, and the leather desk, once the center of his intellectual life, was covered by a thin layer of dust. Sophia had sealed that space, transforming it into a museum of a forbidden past. The atmosphere was dense, laden with a silent melancholy. Mr. Manuel stopped at the threshold of the door, his eyes scanning the room with a mixture of longing and resentment. Ricardo placed a hand on his shoulder, a gesture of support. Dr. Almeida and the court officer, a serious man of few words, waited patiently. "It's here," Mr. Manuel said. His voice choked. "The safe is behind that painting." He pointed to an oil painting of a ship at sea, a piece Ricardo remembered seeing since childhood. The court officer inspected the area, ensuring there were no signs of forced entry or tampering. Dr. Almeida, with his briefcase in hand, prepared to document each step. Ricardo helped his father move the heavy painting, revealing a steel door embedded in the wall. Mr. Manuel approached the safe, his fingers trembling slightly as he typed the combination. The soft click of the mechanism unlocking echoed in the silence of the study, a sound that seemed to seal everyone's fate. The door opened, revealing a dark and organized interior. There were some documents, antique jewelry, and in the center, a yellowed envelope. "This is it," Mr. Manuel murmured, picking up the envelope with reverential care. "My original will." Dr. Almeida took the envelope, examining the seal and the date. "Perfect, Mr. Manuel. It's intact." He opened the envelope and began to read aloud, the formality of his voice contrasting with the contained emotion in the air. The words flowed, clear and unequivocal. "I, Manuel Albuquerque, in full possession of my mental faculties, revoke any previous wills and declare this as my last will and testament. I leave all my assets, properties and fortune to my son, Ricardo Albuquerque, and my granddaughter, Helena Albuquerque, in equal parts, on the condition that both manage the estate jointly, ensuring the well-being and continuity of our lineage." Ricardo felt a knot in his throat. His father's words were a balm for the wounds opened by Sophia's betrayal. It was the validation he needed, proof that deep down, the love and loyalty of his family had always been there, waiting to be rediscovered. The court officer recorded the reading and the authenticity of the document. Dr. Almeida carefully put the will away. "With this document, Mr. Ricardo, our position is unassailable. Sophia's forged will have no legal validity." Mr. Manuel sat in his desk chair, running his hand over the dusty surface. A faint but genuine smile appeared on his lips. "It's as if a weight of years has been lifted from me." As they descended the stairs, Dr. Almeida's phone rang. He answered, and the expression on his face hardened. "Yes, I understand. I'll do that." He hung up, turning to Ricardo. "Mrs. Sophia's lawyers have just filed an emergency motion to contest the validity of Mr. Manuel's will. They allege that he is not in full possession of his mental faculties and that he was coerced into producing it." Ricardo clenched his fists. Coerced. After everything she's done, she still has the audacity to accuse us. "It's a common tactic, Mr. Ricardo," Dr. Almeida explained calmly. "They will try to discredit Mr. Manuel to keep her forged will in play. But we have the medical report attesting to Mr. Manuel's lucidity and the testimony of the court officer who witnessed the opening of the safe. Furthermore, the date of the original will predate any alleged coercion." Helena, who was waiting in the living room, heard the conversation and approached. "She won't stop, will she?" "No, my daughter," Ricardo replied, pulling her into a hug. "She won't. But neither will we. Now we have truth and the law on our side, and we have each other." Mr. Manuel, though tired, nodded firmly. "She can try, but she won't succeed. My will has always been clear, and now it will be fulfilled." The afternoon progressed with a new determination in the house. Ricardo spent time with Helena, talking about her future, about her college plans, about the trips they would take together. He felt the need to fill every gap of lost time, to rebuild every bridge that Sophia had burned. Later, as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Ricardo went to the living room window. Outside, perched on the oak branch, the raven observed the mansion, its dark silhouette against the twilight. Ricardo felt a shiver, a sense that the battle was far from over, but that victory was inevitable. The raven, the messenger of truth, had played its part. Now it was up to the Albuquerque family to fight for their own justice. The storm was brewing on the horizon, but they were ready to face it together. The news of Sophia's counterattack hung in the air, a stark reminder that the battle was far from over. Ricardo, though irritated, felt a wave of determination. He had been blind for too long. "She won't succeed," Ricardo declared, his voice firm, looking at Helena and Mr. Manuel. "We have the truth. And the truth, finally, is on our side." Dr. Almeida nodded. "Exactly, Mr. Ricardo. Her tactic is to try to create doubts about Mr. Manuel's mental capacity, but we have irrefutable proof. Dr. Costa's medical report, which attests to Mr. Manuel's lucidity and full capacity for discernment, is recent and impartial. Furthermore, the court officer is a crucial witness to the opening of the safe and the reading of the will. The date of the original will, as I mentioned, predates any alleged coercion or mental decline they may try to claim." Mr. Manuel, who had sat on the sofa, took a deep breath. "I'm not crazy. I never was. She tried to make me seem like a senile old man, but I always knew what was happening. I just had no way to prove it." "And now you do, Father," Ricardo said, sitting beside him and taking his hand. "We do, and we won't let her discredit you." Helena, her eyes fixed on her father and grandfather, felt a wave of relief mixed with tension. "So, what happens now? Will we have to go to court?" "Probably, yes, Helena," Dr. Almeida replied. "Her lawyers will force a preliminary hearing to try to suspend the validity of Mr. Manuel's will. But we are prepared. I have already requested an emergency hearing to present all our evidence and request the immediate annulment of Sophia's forged will and the confirmation of the original will." Ricardo felt the adrenaline rushing through his veins. It was a fight, and he was ready for it. "Do whatever is necessary, Dr. Almeida. Spare no effort." "Don't worry, Mr. Ricardo. My team is already working on it. We have a mountain of evidence against her. The falsification of the will, the neglect and isolation of Mr. Manuel, the attempt to disinherit Helena, and the emotional manipulation she exerted over you. All of this will be exposed." The mention of manipulation made Ricardo wince. He looked at Helena, his eyes filled with deep regret. "I am so sorry, my daughter, for taking so long to see, for allowing her to do this to you, to Grandpa." Helena approached, sitting on the arm of Ricardo's sofa and hugging him. "I know, Father. I know you were deceived, and seeing you fighting for us now, that means everything." Mr. Manuel smiled, a tired smile but full of hope. "Our family is united again, my son. That's what matters." That night, the mansion, once a stage for intrigues and painful silences, seemed to breathe a different air. Ricardo spent hours in his father's old study, not to work but to tidy, to bring life back to that space. He dusted the books, organized the papers, and even opened the windows to let the fresh air in. It was a symbolic act, a way to purify the past and make way for the future. As he worked, Helena joined him, helping to organize her grandfather's books. They talked about her college, about Ricardo's plans to expand the family business ethically and transparently, and about the possibility of Mr. Manuel returning to writing his memoirs. "I want this house to be a home again, Helena," Ricardo said, looking at her, "a place where we all feel safe and loved." "It will be, Father," she replied with a smile. "I know it will." The next day, Dr. Almeida informed them that the preliminary hearing had been scheduled for the end of the week. Sophia's lawyers were being aggressive, but Dr. Almeida's team was more than ready. "They are trying to intimidate Mr. Ricardo," Dr. Almeida explained by phone. "But truth is a powerful weapon, and we have the truth." Ricardo felt a wave of confidence. He was no longer alone. He had his family, and he had justice on his side. Later, as the sun set, painting the sky in vibrant hues, Ricardo and Helena were on the veranda. Outside, perched on the oak branch, the raven observed the mansion, its dark and imposing silhouette against the twilight. It seemed like a sentinel, a silent guardian of the justice that was being restored. "He's still there," Helena murmured, pointing to the raven. Ricardo nodded. "Yes, he is. And somehow I feel he always will be, as a reminder that truth, however hidden, always finds its way to the light." The legal storm was approaching, but the Albuquerque family was united, stronger than ever. They had avoided the desert, and now they were ready to face anything Sophia could throw at them. Justice would be done. The week that followed dragged on with excruciating slowness, each day a countdown to the preliminary hearing. The mansion, though lighter with the family's unity, still carried the shadow of the imminent battle. Ricardo, Helena, and Mr. Manuel spent hours together, strengthening the bonds that Sophia had tried to destroy, preparing themselves mentally and emotionally for the confrontation. Finally, the day arrived. The courthouse was an imposing building with cold marble and echoing corridors. The courtroom was filled with palpable tension. On one side, Ricardo, Helena, and Mr. Manuel, accompanied by Dr. Almeida and his team. On the other, Sophia, impeccably dressed with an expression of calculated coldness, flanked by her lawyers. Her eyes, once capable of seducing Ricardo, now gleamed with contained fury. The hearing began. Sophia's lawyers, with expected aggression, tried to paint Mr. Manuel as a senile, easily manipulated man whose recent will should not be taken seriously. They presented testimonies from mansion staff who, under Sophia's influence, claimed to have witnessed the patriarch's cognitive decline. Ricardo felt his blood boil, but Dr. Almeida calmed him with a gesture. It was their turn. Dr. Almeida stood up, his voice calm and firm, filling the room. "Your Honor, Mrs. Sophia Albuquerque's defense desperately attempts to discredit a lucid and dignified man, to uphold a fraud. I present, firstly, the medical report from Dr. Costa, a renowned neurologist, which attests to Mr. Manuel Albuquerque's full mental capacity and discernment, with dates both prior to and after the defense's allegations." The judge examined the document. Dr. Almeida continued, "Secondly, I present the testimony of the court officer who witnessed the opening of the safe and the reading of Mr. Manuel Albuquerque's original will. This document, dated 15 years ago, expresses his unequivocal wish to divide his estate between his son, Ricardo, and his granddaughter, Helena. The authenticity of this document is unquestionable." The court officer, a serious and impartial man, confirmed the facts. Sophia's expression began to waver, a crack in her mask of confidence. "Furthermore, Your Honor," Dr. Almeida proceeded, his voice gaining strength, "we present evidence of the falsification of the will that Mrs. Sophia attempted to impose, as well as proof of the calculated neglect and isolation she imposed on Mr. Manuel, and the emotional manipulation she exerted over my client, Ricardo Albuquerque, to disinherit his own daughter, Helena." Ricardo looked at Sophia, who was now pale, her eyes fixed on the floor. The truth, naked and raw, was being exposed for all to see. Helena squeezed her grandfather's hand, who held his head high, his dignity intact. The judge, after a brief recess to consider the evidence, returned. In light of the irrefutable evidence presented by Mr. Manuel Albuquerque's defense, including the medical report, the court officer's testimony, and the authenticity of the original will, this court rules: the will presented by Mrs. Sophia Albuquerque is declared null and void. Mr. Manuel Albuquerque's original will is validated and confirmed. All accusations of mental incapacity or coercion are unfounded and rejected. A collective sigh of relief escaped Ricardo and Helena's lips. Sophia, on the other hand, stood up abruptly, her eyes flashing. "This is absurd, an injustice. He is senile. Yes, they set me up." Her lawyers tried to restrain her, but Sophia's angelic facade had completely crumbled, revealing the fury and greed that consumed her. The judge pounded his gavel firmly. "Order in the court. Mrs. Sophia Albuquerque will be held responsible for court cost and document falsification. The session is adjourned." Outside the courthouse, Sophia attempted one last gambit, hurling empty accusations and threats, but her voice was merely a faint echo against the Albuquerque's victory. Ricardo, Helena, and Mr. Manuel walked out with their heads held high, a sense of freedom and justice filling their hearts. Back at the mansion, the setting sun painted the sky with shades of hope. The house, once a stage for intrigues, now breathed an air of peace. Ricardo embraced Helena and his father, feeling the weight of years of deception finally dissipate. "We did it, Father," Ricardo said, his voice choked with emotion. "We did it." Mr. Manuel smiled, a genuine and vibrant smile. "Yes, my son, the truth always finds its way. That's what matters. And now we can finally live in peace." Helena, with tear-filled eyes, looked at the two men she loved. "I always knew the truth would win." That night, as the family dined together, laughing and talking about the future, Ricardo felt immense gratitude. He had avoided the desert not only for Helena but for himself. He had found his way back to the love and loyalty of his family. Later, on the veranda, Ricardo and Helena watched the starry sky. Outside, perched on the oak branch, the raven observed the mansion, its dark and imposing silhouette against the night. It seemed like a sentinel, a silent guardian of the justice that had been restored. Ricardo nodded, a soft smile on his lips. "Yes, it is, as a reminder that truth, however hidden, always finds its way to the light, and that love, true love, always prevails." The raven, the messenger of truth, had fulfilled its mission. The storm had passed, and the Albuquerque family, stronger and more united than ever, was ready for a new dawn. Justice had been done, and the home finally was a sanctuary of peace and love.